Hello everyone, and welcome to the 10th and final seminar this year at least, but not the final seminar in this series. We do plan to continue on into 2022 with another fantastic range of invited speakers on our theme of corpus technology for language learning, international perspectives. That's what it's all about. Today, wherever you are, I'm incredibly privileged to have Professor Tony Berber-Sardinha, who is joining us from the Pontifical Catholic University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. And we have a formal introduction for Professor Berber-Sardinha coming up by Dr. Paula Pinto of the State University of Sao Paulo. Just before we get into that, as is customary with any public occasion hosted by an Australian university, we just like to acknowledge the traditional owners and their custodianship of the lands on which we meet. We pay our respects to their ancestors and their descendants who continue cultural and spiritual connections to country and recognize their valuable contributions to Australian and global society. So we now have an introduction of our speaker today by Dr. Paula Pinto.
Okay, so welcome everyone. It's very nice to have you all here today, this afternoon or tonight. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tony Berber-Sardinha, who is a professor of applied linguistics at the Pontifical Catholic University of São Paulo, PUC, Brazil. Tony has published numerous books and research articles and is on the board of several journals and book collections. He's the editor-in-chief for the linguistics journal Delta and the current corpus linguistics area editor for the multi-volume Encyclopedia of Applied Linguistics. His interests include corpus linguistics, discourse analysis, cultural studies, multimodality, metaphor analysis, and applied linguistics. Tony is one of the main researchers, if not the one responsible for launching corpus linguistics in Brazil with his book, Linguística de Corpus, and has worked with some of the main international corpus linguistics centers in the UK and the US. So it's my pleasure and honor to introduce him today. Tony, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Let me toggle my screen. Do you want to continue? Yeah, I do. Okay, so yeah, it's really a wonderful opportunity, and you guys are very kind to offer me space for me to talk about my research. I'm going to talk about multimodality in corpus linguistics, which is kind of unusual, right? If you're into corpus, you will have noticed there's very little in terms of multimodality. There's also very little in terms of social media. There's some interest, but not much compared to other fields. But here's my plan. So I want to just give you an overview of my goals with this research project. I'm going to focus on discourse. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I mean by discourse. Then I'm going to move on to multimodal analysis. I'm going to show you the methods I've used for this particular project. Then I'm going to talk about the results of the visual analysis and the textual analysis, and then some brief conclusions. But I'm going to, in between these topics, I'm going to talk about how you can use some of these ideas in language teaching So even though the talk is not about corpus tools and techniques for language teaching, I hope there's some ideas here that you guys can use if you're teaching English, and you like the topic, and you think it's interesting for you to engage your students with the large scale debates that are currently going on in the social media space. So I want to really thank Peter. Oh, there's two Peters. Okay, but okay, there's one Peter. Peter's here. So thank you, Peter, for this. And thank you, Paula, for the kind invitation, for the generous intro. It's much more generous than I deserve, really. Thank you, Fran, for organizing this, for getting in touch with me and get everything going. So to get us started, I set up this survey. I would like you guys to go to that link, click on it, and let's see if it works. Okay, here, can you see this? I toggled over to this screen. If you guys could tell me if you can see this.
We can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Paula. So if you guys could go to that link, which is this one. Let me copy that. I'm gonna post that here in the chat. All right, there it is. If you guys could just click there and then try and guess if each one of these words you think is more associated with the supporters of climate change, those that think climate change is caused by human beings and we have to do something to stop it, or whether the word is more closely associated with those that think climate change is not man-made and it's a natural phenomenon and we shouldn't disrupt the economy and the way we live to try to stop it, because we won't be able to stop it anyway. So it's really about whether you think this word, each of these words, is more closely associated with the discourse of those that support the climate change theory and claims, or whether it is more associated with those that deny it, those that are skeptical. Okay, so I think there's 13 of these. So I'm gonna keep on talking. I'm gonna toggle back to my slides, but I hope you guys can just click away, think about whether you have any guesses or not. All right, while I continue my talk. Is that all right? Done? Okay.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, done. Great. Thanks. Done. All right. You guys are quick. All right, here we go. So, survey results. All right. So, okay. So, but I'm going to come back to the results in a minute. So all I'm going to say now, I'm coming to you from here, all right, from Sao Paulo, the largest city in the Southern Hemisphere. I wish you guys could be here, all right. It's great to be online, but I wish we could be together, looking at each other, talking with each other face to face. But if you guys are wondering where I'm speaking from, all right, here it is. And here is lovely Brisbane. Wonderful. I've never had a chance to go to Brisbane. My family and I have had the good fortune of visiting Australia, but we didn't go as far up north from Sydney as far as Brisbane. But it's certainly on my radar right now, and I really want to go. And I wish we were there too. I wish we were all there in Brisbane, lovely Brisbane. And And I have a reminder here that Australia is right there. This is sitting on my kitchen wall. It's one of those mementos we brought back from our trip. Australia is right over there, 16,000 kilometers away. It's a bloody long way, but it's worth it, all right? Okay, this is work in progress. It's what I'm going to talk about today is literally fresh out of the oven and still baking, I think. But there's something here for us to grab a bite on, ready to eat. So how are we doing with our survey? Everybody, did you guys have a chance? You missed the best part of Australia. I see. Yeah, I loved Australia, really. The people, the places, the natural wonders, the living conditions, everything, it was perfect. It was summertime too, so we really had a blast. I think everybody's done. So how about we go and take a look at the results. So, okay, so here we go. For air, most people thought this was associated with supporters. I have my cheat sheet here. So air, yeah, it's associated with supporters. Yes, you guys are right. Next one is C, again, supporters. But you guys are wrong. So this keyword, oh, I didn't mention that, but these are keywords, all right, from my corpus. So C is a keyword for deniers, all right, for deniers. So the deniers are more likely to use the word C than the supporters. Now cold, all right, we have somewhat of a split here, but cold is associated with deniers. So you guys are right here, but a lot of people got fooled by this one, all right? Okay, warm, supporters for the majority, but you guys are wrong, definitely wrong. So warm is a keyword for deniers. So the deniers will use this word more often than the supporters in social media. Coal, okay, coal, we got a battle going on here. All right, so how about coal? Coal is more used by supporters. So you guys are right. A lot of people got fooled here. Oil, all right, how about oil? Oil is a keyword for supporters, but a lot of people got fooled by this one too. Electricity, we got a dispute here. So electricity, it's associated with deniers. So deniers talk about electricity more often than the supporters. Science, here's interesting, this is interesting, all right, science. You would be surprised to know that science is far more used by the deniers, all right, to put out their claims than supporters. Scientists, okay, scientists, again, you guys got fooled because scientist is a keyword for deniers. Yeah, how about research? Oh, okay, you guys think that research is associated with supporters. You're right. Okay, this time around, you're right. The word right, okay, the word right, what's going on here? Okay, right is a keyword for supporters. You guys were definitely right here. Now wrong is a keyword for deniers. So you guys are on fire at the end here. So true, how about true? True, you guys got fooled again. Oh no, really? I thought you guys had figured this out at the end, but no, So the word true is mostly associated with deniers. So thank you guys for taking part in this warm-up. So as you can see, we cannot predict, okay, the vocabulary for the supporters or the deniers on social media. So that's point number one. Point number two is that the discourses are finely tuned, all right? So if your choice of vocabulary will give it away, whether you're a supporter or a denier of climate change. And the other point I would like to raise is, okay, we can go ahead and focus on these words with our students, okay? You can go to COCA, for instance, and you can search for instance, warm, okay? And compare it, for instance, with hot. Okay, you can contrast warm and hot, see what the patterns are, or you can look at scientists and science, all right, see what the patterns are. So, so this is something I think this research project can bring to language teaching is the keywords, okay? So I have a list of keywords. I'm gonna let you guys have it. Where's my link? It's coming up, okay? The link for where you can download the full list of the keywords is coming up, okay? In one of these slides. But you can go ahead and use that list as talking points, conversation points with your students to raise awareness and also practice language points, okay? There's something to, it's sort of the main points for the social media debate around climate change. And if you're a believer like I am, that we have to bring in these hot debates, these hot topics to the classroom, then I think that's a nice way to get started. And as you can see, we cannot predict it, okay? The discourse has taken shape in a way that we cannot predict, but it's right there and it's pretty structured, it's pretty patterned, and there's something to explore, okay? Here are my goals, okay? I want to identify the macro discourses. I mean, the purpose of tweets around climate change, and I have taken a multimodal perspective and also a multidimensional perspective. So I have used computer vision techniques to detect the visual constituents in the posts. I have used corpus techniques to detect the lexical characteristics in the post. I've also ran a multidimensional analysis and identified the major dimensions of discourse for both the verbal and the visual modes. I've computed correlations between the verbal and visual dimensions to come up with sort of a multimodal set of dimensions for the discourse, combining text and pictures. And so I really, at the end, I have some insights into how the discourses have been shaped around the overall stance toward climate change, like the supporters or deniers, and importantly, the role of the individual social media users, how the individuals or the accounts shape the discourse. And also give you guys some suggestions as to how we can possibly use some of these ideas in language teaching and learning. Okay, discourse. Okay, here's what I mean by discourse as an ensemble of ideas, concepts, and categorizations that are produced, reproduced, and transformed in a particular set of practices and which affect physical and social realities Here's one that I think is interesting. Discourses frame problems. So in order for problems to get talked about, they get talked about through discourses, organized ways of thinking and saying, right? Here's another one. Discourse are ways of looking at the world, of constructing objects and concepts in certain ways. So the climate change is either real or fake, but that depends on how these two stances are constructed, really. Also, discourse is the set of meanings, representation, and statements that produce a particular version of the events. So we have a version for discourse change is real, and another version for discourse, so climate change is fake. Okay, here's one that I think is interesting for us purpose linguists, because it says the discourse makes it possible to construct the topic in a certain way. And we know that we can find evidence for topics in Corpora. So we can use topics as a way into the discourse. So we start with the words reflect what people are talking about, but much, much more than that. The topic also reflects who is saying, what the purpose of talking about that is, what groups are benefit from that kind of discourse, what groups oppose that kind of discourse, and so on and so forth. So in terms of discourse analysis methods, we have two major ones. You have the text-based one, where you conduct micro-analyses. You use basically qualitative techniques, and you use small data samples. And we say you do a close reading of the text, because you're a human being looking at the text and understanding what it means. But you also have a corpus-based set of methods where you do macro analyses, you use computers to help you, and you can focus on large data samples. But we say when you do this, you're actually doing a distant reading, all right? Because you're not really reading the text. You can read a sample, but you cannot read the whole corpus, right? Okay, here's my corpus. So I sampled the major accounts associated with the supporters and the deniers. So I downloaded a list of the major accounts for each side of the debate. Then I scraped the tweets posted by those accounts. And this is pretty recent. So I did this early this month. As you can see, I got 22,000 tweets. Also, I have the texts and the images. And here's something I find interesting. As you can see, the supporters have used more images than the deniers. I think that makes sense when you see my findings, okay? But just bear that in mind. And even though we talk about the importance of images, or pictures in social media, as you can see, it's just about 30% of the tweets that have an image associated with the tweet. So 70% is just pure text. Okay, they will have emojis, things like that. Those are not just text, and smileys, things like that. Okay, but in terms of actual graphic files, okay, it's just 30%. Okay, I conducted this key lemma and key visual tags analysis So I didn't look at all of the elements. I computed the key ones, which you have seen a sample of before, right? And here are the numbers. So for the visual analysis, I have 90 key elements. For the textual analysis, 289. These are not evenly distributed between supporters and deniers, as you can see. Multimodality. Okay, multimodality is both a type of communication and a field of research. So as a type of communication, it means the combination of different semiotic resources or modes in text and communicative events. So most of the time when we say a multimodal corpus and things like that, we're referring to the type of communication. But it's also a field of research, and it's expanding. It's an expanding one. It means that communication is inherently multimodal, and therefore it's not possible for us to explain the meanings in a text, in a message, by looking just at one mode. We need several modes to take account of what is going on in the language. There are several challenges for corpus linguistics and multimodality, as you can imagine, mostly having to do with annotating a corpus for multimodal features, be them images or video or sound, acoustics, gesture. All of these things are very, very time consuming to annotate. And for vision, there are automatic methods to annotate a corpus of images and video. And that's where I'm coming from. So by multimodality, I mean texts and images. Okay, those are the two modes that I'm talking about here when I'm referring to multimodal. But bear in mind, it's not just text and images. There's several other modes, okay? But I'm looking at just those two. Okay, so here's one, computer vision with Google Cloud. Here's an example, okay? So what is this? Can somebody tell me what's on my screen right now?
I'd say
yeah,
some birds. I don't know which kind. In the
birds,
river,
yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think Mariana Yonamini, she got it right on. Those are, oh, cockatoos. I'm sorry, Mariana. No, I didn't see that right. The cockatoos are different. Cockatiels. Okay, Mariangela, thank you. Yeah, so cockatiels. I have a pair of those here at home. They're a constant reminder of Australia too. They're lovely birds. So cockatiels, all right. So what will computer vision do with a picture like this? So I'm going to toggle over here. So here's Google Cloud. You can access this free of charge. You can use this with your students. So what do you have to do? Just simply drag the picture over here. I have done this beforehand. So here it is, okay, the exact same picture. But now the computer is telling me what's in the picture, all right? So the computer is seeing this, quote unquote, and it's telling me there's water here, and it's 98% confident there's water. Yeah, indeed. There are birds. Yeah, for sure. Beaks. Yeah, there's plenty of beaks. All right. wood. Okay, here's the wood right there in the background. Larry. Okay, Larry, I wasn't aware, but Larry is a kind of bird and a family of birds associated with seagulls. So this one is not right. Okay, these are not seagulls, but you would be excused. All right. Many of you guys had no idea what kind of bird this was. So these were, so that's fine. But as you can see, there's water and there's birds. So normally seagulls are water birds. Okay. So yeah. So beach. I don't think this is a beach. No. There are feathers and wings, and there's a lake. Okay, much more like it. Seabird, not really. Gulls, no. Sand, yeah, I guess this is dirt. Tail, yeah, lots of tails. I don't know what this means. Water bird, wildlife, herring gull, no. Perching bird, yeah, I think cockatiels are perching birds. Ocean, no. As you can see now, the computer has given us a description of what's in the picture. And this is of extreme value for multimodal corpus analysis, all right? I have used these labels. I have also used something that is not available here in this free version, but it is something that Google calls web entities. So web entities are the information related to who is using the picture, or who, and also who is in the picture. So if we had a person here like Greta Thunberg, or the prime minister of a country or something like that, then web entities would identify the person and tell us, oh, this is Greta Thunberg, or this is the prime minister, someone, or I don't know, Joe Biden or whoever is here. And so I also use that extra information as well, all right? So this is computer vision, okay, in a nutshell. Yeah, this is the link, and you can go ahead and use this. I think it's great for the students. It was primarily devised so that you can power search engines. All right, so if you type in birds, so you get all the images that Google has collected and tagged with computer vision. That's how Google can give you back pictures based on what you type, all right, in your search box. Because what you type gets then matched up with a database of tagged pictures. Okay, so here's an example from my corpus. So this was posted. And over here, you can see what were the annotations. So it's telling me there's a rectangle. Yeah, well, there are slopes. Yeah, that's for sure. There are fonts, and that means there are texts. There are lines. Yes, yes. And there's plenty more. Okay, this is just the top of the output. As you can see, the output is different because this is I got this using an API, which is computer to computer thing. Not human to computer, but computer to computer, then you get this thing, okay? But this is the raw data that I used. I also used the USAS Semantic Analysis system because there's, as you saw in that example with the cockatiels, there's a huge amount of tags that Google will give you back, but there's too many of them. So what I did was I grouped those tags into semantic categories using the USAS tagger, okay? So here's the USAS tagger. It's free of charge. If you're not using extreme, if you're not using really huge amounts of text, and you can paste your text right here, and this, you can use this with your students too. Because then you can talk about what is the category associated with this word and that word, okay? And okay, so based on that, remember, so this is what Google gave me. And now when I tagged it with the USAS, I got something like this. So I have the A6 category, which means comparing. Yeah, it's okay. They're comparing things. Great. Arts and crafts. Well, yeah, no, not so much. Mathematics. Yes, definitely. This is related to mathematics and measurements and quantities. Objects, yeah. Physical attributes, okay. There's colors, things like that. A communication, yeah, okay. Geographical terms, not really, no. Mental objects, I don't think so. And science and technology, yes, that's for sure. So as you can see, it's not 100%, and it's not the fault of USAS. These tags are based on what Google has tagged the picture with, okay? But now, as you can see, I have a smaller set of labels to work with. So here are the key semantic fields for the supporters. So the supporters will use pictures that are related to entertainment, to business, to people and groups, to plants, vehicles, moving, going and coming, happiness and contentment, clothes, being, and green issues. This is just the top 10, okay? So these are the semantic visual constituents. Now, what about the deniers? Completely different. So they will use pictures that are related to mathematics, quantities, or crime and law, comparing mental things, geographical things, also physical attributes, living creatures and measurements, okay? So very different, a very different aesthetics, okay? For supporters or deniers, very different, as you can see. Here are dilemmas for the visual mode, verbal mode. I think we talked about this, okay? So I'm gonna skip these. Oh, here's the handout with the keywords, all right? So if you guys wanna go ahead and grab the full keyword list, you might find it useful, okay? So here's a link for that. And so let me know if you guys can download this or not. You don't have to, okay? It's just something I thought might be interesting. So I'm gonna put that link right here in the chat. All right. Okay, so multidimensional analysis. So it's a lot. There's a lot of computation. So first of all, we do part of speech tagging, lemmatization. I computed the key lemmas, like I mentioned before. We do factor analyses, and then we do the microanalysis, the qualitative part, and then we come up with some dimension labels, and we score the texts one by one according to the dimensions. With the visual, okay, we do the computer vision part, then I do the semantic tagging, I extracted key semantic tags like we saw. Then it's pretty much like the textual analysis then. The microanalysis here is different because when I'm doing the qualitative analysis of the visual mode, I'm looking at the pictures and the text together, okay? So this is pretty challenging because you have to make sense of what is meant by the images in terms of the discourse, okay? So I'm not just talking about what's in the picture. So I'm moving away from the Google visual analysis, all right? So Google has already told me what is in the picture in terms of the individual parts. But now I have to figure out what is the discourse that is behind this, okay? Okay, the multimodal, I think, where I'm coming from then is, I'm saying, well, the visual part has shared constituents, and those shared constituents are moved by particular discourses. With the text, I'm looking at the lexis and I'm saying, well, if the lexis is shared, that's because there's a shared discourse that's moving this. And then when I bring together the shared discourses for the visual and the verbal, then I think I'm doing the multimodal part. Okay, so here are the dimensions, all right, for the visual. Stop climate change versus science doesn't support climate change. Get involved to stop climate change, framing the debate on climate change, and the world is fighting climate change versus the mainstream media are part of a conspiracy. I think those are the dimensions. I'm not sure about the way to phrase those dimensions yet, but you have some idea here, all right? So dimension 1, stop climate change and science doesn't support climate change. Here are the major semantic characteristics, okay? So for the stop climate change part of the discourse, you see lots of clothing, social actions, work, people talking, happiness, people in general, entertainment, and things like that. For the other side, saying science doesn't support climate change, basically what you have is mathematics, quantities, comparisons, things like that. Here's the one, okay, this picture came up a lot, and it's associated with the supporters. All right, so as you can see, there's people here. So they're together. So this goes back here. As you can see, clothes, there's social actions, they're meeting. So there's this, they're okay, we can say, okay, they're working, all right. They seem happy, yeah, they're not displeased at all. And here too, as you can see, groups of people, they're striking, all right. So this again goes back to these semantic fields. Now, what about the deniers? All right, so here again, we saw this picture before. Lots of data, all right, mathematics, comparisons. Also here, another one, you cannot imagine how many of these I got. All of these graphs and texts and sort of evidence or against climate change. Okay, in terms of the difference between these two groups, not very much, just 6.7% difference. But in terms of the individual users, here's where it gets interesting, all right? Because there's a 30.9% difference between the supporters and deniers. Supporters are in green, deniers are in red. And as you can see on this side over here, this is the side of the stop climate change debate. And this side over here to your right is the science doesn't support climate change. As you can see on the left, you have mostly green ones, meaning those accounts are for supporters, and to the right, you have the ones that are skeptical. And so there's a fair division, all right, between the supporters and deniers in terms of the visual aesthetics here. Second one, get involved. That's the discourse here, okay, get involved. How do you do this? You show pictures that are related to bravery and fear, obligation, green issues, time, features, children, relationships, sports, life, things like that. So here's one, okay. This is a book by like one climate climate change personality. So it's about green issues. They're talking about the time of things. Here's another one, get involved, okay. The text says, this teen turns climbing ropes destined for a landfill into dog leashes. Okay, so he's doing his part, he's getting involved. But again, as you can see, it's related to green issues, children's games, living creatures. All right, you saw a dog there. So there's not much. Okay, there's a 9% difference between supporters and deniers. Also, there's a split between the supporters and deniers here, 12%. But I think I'm going to skip ahead. Okay. You saw the dimensions. You have some idea now. All right. Here are some pictures for those dimensions. The green piece here. There's a cartoon. Don't listen to baby doomers. Here, this one is related to the discourse of there's a conspiracy, okay, are orchestrated by the mainstream media, so don't be fooled. Okay. In terms of the visual aesthetics, okay, in terms of the visual constituents, so we have basically for dimension 1, an opposition between showing people and showing numbers, okay? That's the basic division, okay? The second one is all about showing people, books, animals, and games. Number 3 is about workplaces. And number 4, there's an opposition between showing pictures that show the weather, either in the foreground or in the background, also buildings and outdoors, and images that are related to drawings and texts. So I'm calling this the visual aesthetics, okay? I'm gonna just try and give you a quick mosaic of the pictures, because then I think you can begin to see a pattern here. I hope this works. I hope you guys can see. Can you guys see this graph over here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paula. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go real quick, just so you can have like a visual concordance, all right, of the images. So this one is related to science doesn't support climate change. See? So these are very similar, aren't they? So again, I did not pick these ones. These ones came out of the analysis saying, well, all of these have something in common. All right. So what's the commonality? The commonality is they share a particular discourse. Now this other one over here is for the Stop Climate Change side of the debate for the supporters. So we said people are present in these pictures, as you can see, gatherings of people. Yes. All right. Well, this is funny, right? Okay. So we saw this one before. So as you can see, very, very different aesthetic choices, okay, between the two sides of the debate. Yeah. For number 2, here we're saying, okay, get involved. This is the discourse, and this is the visual aesthetics. So people, sorry, people and books and animals, okay? Now number 3, framing the debate. As you can see, for this one, there's a lot of workplaces and weather. So people working here, workplace situations, right? I hope you guys can see that through this analysis, we can go off the surface and see patterns of visual choices, all right, that I think are moving the debate. And there's a pattern, there's a systematic way of using these pictures. Okay. The verbal dimensions, I'm just going to go ahead and just show you this one's, but we have 8 of them. So global warming is a natural cycle versus we have to stop it. Number 2, the data reject global warming versus climate change threatens people's livelihoods. Number 3, no scientific evidence to support global warming versus join us to support the climate change fight. Number 3, transitioning from fossil fuels versus follow our campaigns. Number 5, thank you for your support versus government plans are failing. Number 6, renewable energy versus young people have to be heard. 7, air pollution versus climate activism. And 8, ecocide versus informal opinions. Okay, I'm not going to show you each one of these, okay? But you can have a look at them in my slides if you want. You can download my slides, okay? Just the first one then maybe, all right. Okay, here's one that says text dimension 1 is about an opposition between the discourse of global warming is caused by humans, climate change is caused by humans, versus everyone must take action to stop climate change. Oh, sorry, no, the first one is not, sorry, importantly. Global warming and climate change are not caused by humans, versus everyone must take action to stop it, meaning it is caused by humans, so we have to do something about it. And as you can see for the deniers, they use this H here means hashtag. So they use quite a few hashtags. The EG hashtag meaning environmental globalization, sorry, environment. Well, it means the global movement to support the climate change initiatives. AGW, so anthropomorphic global warming, climate change. So these hashtags are very much associated with the deniers. Whereas for the supporters, it's all about, okay, everyone has to do something. It's important to do something. Let's protect the environment. Let's rally the communities. There's a crisis going on, as you can see. In terms of the difference between the two groups, there's 18%. There's an 18% difference between the accounts. As you can see on the left-hand side, these are the deniers. On the right-hand side, these are the supporters. But I'm going to skip ahead, and I'm going to go to the canonical correlation. Okay, so here, what I wanted to do was then, well, now that I have 4 dimensions for the visual and 8 for the text, how do these two relate to each other, all right? Because so far we have been looking at each one separately. So it turns out there's two major patterns. The first one is what I call environmental skepticism, basically because it reflects their values and their aesthetic choices. It is this. So ocean records reject global warming. So that's the text dimension 2. No scientific evidence for global warming. That's dimension 3. Air pollution, that's dimension 7. And in terms of the images, so how do they express this debate in terms of the images? So they use lots and lots of charts and figures, as we saw. So these things go together. And the other one I called it echo activism. So dimension 7 for text, dimension 4 for text, and dimension 2 for text. And the dimension 4 for images, using pictures of places and people. So these pictures are pretty much, very much associated with the idea, well, there's something going on and people all over the world are being affected by this, and they're getting together to do something about it. And the discourse is associated with the text. What is this? Where my time? So these are the two major statistical correlations between the text and the images, okay? So there's a really nice divide between the two discourses. Very different textual messages and very different visual messages, all right? Coming to the end of this, so final remarks. Before I go to the final remarks, there's something else. If we go, I think something you guys could perhaps explore with your students. This is Google Books, Engrams. They have this viewer where you can explore the Engrams. And this is big data, okay? So you can involve your students with big data corpus linguistics, okay? It's very simple. You go to this site and you put in whatever terms you want. So I'm using global warming, pollution, and climate change. So I want to measure the extent to which these terms were popular over time. And the use of the terms reflects the importance of these ideas over time, all right? So we can compare this very neatly, as you can see. So pollution is a much, much more popular term, the red line, especially since the 60s, okay, 60s and 70s. The peak was in the 70s. I do remember that. If you're old like me, you will remember that we didn't talk about global warming or climate change or anything like that. It was all about pollution. So the threat was pollution. But that has declined. And now climate change has taken its place as the phrase of choice for us to talk about environmental issues. Global warming is less popular. Okay, here's a trick. Sometimes a term is so much more used than the other ones that you can search using something like this. So you say multiply by 10 or whatever number you want. Okay, because you know this one in this case is much, much more frequent. And you want to get the detail for the other ones. So see what happens here? Now you have a better view of the difference between these two. So climate change is far more frequent and it's rising, whereas global warming is losing its speed, okay? So global warming had a peak here in the late 2000s, okay? But now, 2010s and 2020s, it's climate change. So here you have a history of the ideas and the vocabulary, and I think you can use this. Students love this because they can display and visualize important textual information, and you can use these things to as talking points or conversation starters and projects, okay, with your students. Okay, so, all right, final remarks. This is an exploratory study in social media from a corpus perspective. I have evidence of a visual aesthetics for both sides of the debate. I tried to detect multimodal patterns of lexical and visual resources. So a profusion of different discourses exists, and these are disseminated through systematic patterns. So that's the main point here I'm trying to convey. It's systematic, all right? And the current debates, such as climate change, can be brought to the classroom, I think. Students can practice conversation, debating, posting online. They can do projects about this. You know, either side, I think, I'm not for canceling people that think differently. That's my opinion, all right? But if you have students that don't believe in climate change and they're deniers, that's fine with me. I want to give them a chance to speak, all right? And then you can have a true debate. So if I were doing this, I would be as open as possible, all right? And do not cancel anyone or stop anyone from talking because they have a different position. I have my own position, okay? I would like to defend it, but I would not like to cancel anyone because they don't agree with me. Okay, and then students can explore the collocation patterns, learn the vocabulary and the phraseology, I think. Oh, and they can use the computer vision tools, all right? Like I showed you, I think students really like this. I think what I've seen so far is either they love it or they think it's just obvious, okay? For them to have computers that can see and understand images is just ordinary. To me, it's magic. But why don't you give it a try? Maybe, you know, your students will relate in a different way to these techniques. So thank you all. Thank you very much for your time. You can download my slides through this link over here. Let me post that link in the chat. All right. Okay, so I think I'm gonna wrap this up with the references, okay? And most of all, thank you guys for your patience.
Thanks so much, Tony. A really interesting talk on a really well-developed study.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Is it just me?
I can hear you. I can hear
me
Peter.
now, Tony, or not?
Maybe it's just me.
Yeah.
What's happening?
I can hear Peter too.
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
if everybody else can hear me, can you hear me, Tony?
I can hear you now.
It's just me, right? Is it better? Can somebody say something?
Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
my
Tony,
gosh.
what I'll try to do is I will.
All right, let's see.
Can you hear anything now?
Can you hear me?
Are your speakers turned up?
Mm.
Are your speakers turned up?
Yes,
Oh,
we can hear
that's
you.
weird.
Yes,
Can't-
we can hear you.
I have no sound. Maybe Now, okay, I got you guys now. Sorry about that.
Okay, we here?
Yep.
Oh, okay, that's great. So thanks very much, Tony, for the great talk. Lots of different stages there of the research, lots of different things that went into that. And it was good that you provided the infographic during the talk about the different stages of how it worked and the different steps that you took. So I've just done my best to try to collate the questions, but before we do that, I'd just like to thank our speaker again, Professor Tony Berber-Sardinha. You can thank him in the way that you see appropriate via Zoom, however you manage that. He is the final speaker in this seminar series for 2021. We will be back, however, in 2022 with, again, a great selection of speakers as we have had this semester. Just for the purposes of the recording here, we're going to wrap it up. And I'd just like to thank Tony again for his fantastic talk. And then we'll get into the Q&A as soon as I finish the recording. So for those people who tuned in today from around the world, thanks for coming in, and we'll see you all next year.